This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, Heather. Ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe on this date. And on this day, November 25th, 2007, the Grey Cup happened. It was a big Grey Cup between the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. This would be huge. This was the first time Toronto had hosted the Grey Cup in 15 years, which is unusual. That Toronto would have a 15-year drought of hosting the Grey Cup. This was the third Grey Cup at the Rogers Centre, well, also known as the Skydome. They did it in 1989 and 1992. The game was a sellout. But the main reason why this game was memorable was this was the last time that CBC would broadcast the Grey Cup. TSN has had the Grey Cup ever since 2008. So anyway, this was between Saskatchewan and Winnipeg. Over 3.3 million viewers on CBC would broadcast it. So anyway, there were Grey Cup festivities. They had the Fanier Cup, which was Canada's university championship. And it was Manitoba beating St. Mary's. So big win for Manitoba. This was the first time the Fanier Cup was held in conjunction with the Grey Cup, meaning that the Fanier Cup was at the Rogers Centre, and then the next day would be the Grey Cup. A few days later would be the Grey Cup because they had to redo the field for the Grey Cup stuff. Winnipeg probably felt good about themselves because if Manitoba could win the Grey Cup, win the Fanier Cup, then hey, the province of Manitoba could win the Grey Cup. So anyway, it was the 2007 season happened and all that. Just trying to get some stats and all that. So yeah, 2007 happened. BC was the top team in the West with a 14-3-1 mark in 18 games. Saskatchewan was 12-6 for second, and Calgary was third at 7-10. And won for third place for 15 points. In the East, Toronto won narrowly over Winnipeg by 1 point. With the Alouettes 8-10 for third, Hamilton sucked, and so did Edmonton, so no crossover. So in the division semis, Winnipeg narrowly beat Montreal in the Eastern Division semi, meaning that Winnipeg would move on to the conference final against the Argos in Toronto. Saskatchewan narrowly escaped Calgary in that thing too. So Saski won the right to go to BC. Winnipeg would hold Toronto to 9 points to get to the Grey Cup final, and Saski held BC in check with their win. So Winnipeg and Saskatchewan would face each other in the Grey Cup, and it would be huge. More so for the fact that Winnipeg and Saskatchewan meet in what they call the Banjo Bowl, like the day before Labor Day. They would meet, and then the next week they would meet back in Winnipeg. So Saski would host Winnipeg one week, and then Winnipeg would host Saski the next week. This was huge. Saski and Winnipeg at times were division rivals, but were not division. They are division rivals now, but in 2007 they weren't because there were only 8 teams in the CFL. Ottawa did not have a franchise for 6 more years or something before they finally got one, and then made it 9 and made Winnipeg move to the West. Nevertheless, this was huge. So this was the 46th Grey Cup in Toronto history because Toronto almost always held it. And it was the first time since 1992 they hosted the Grey Cup. So that was a 15-year drought and all that. Speaking of droughts, bring the Grey Cup to Montreal. It's been 16 years since Montreal's hosted one. Well, of course, Olympic Stadium is being repurposed, and also McGill Stadium, where the Alouettes play, probably too small. Nevertheless, this was big. So the Rough Riders would go first. The teams would trade back and forth until Troy West would kick the 16-yard field goal. And you'd be thinking to yourself, 16 yards, isn't that too short? Well, in the CFL, they have the goalpost right on the goal line, meaning that, they don't have the 10 extra yards that the NFL does. The NFL places their goalpost on the back of the end zone, so that's 10 yards. And that you add to the field goal. And then you got to give 7 yards of neutral zone. So Westwood, so it'd be a 16-yard field goal for Westwood. So they were down at the 9, then you add 7 yards. Anyway, Saskatchewan would concede a safety, and it was 5-0 Winnipeg. On Saskatchewan's next possession, they would get penalized and would have to concede another safety. And then Ryan Dinwiddie tried to throw a big pass to Mill Stiegel, but it was intercepted by James Johnson for a pick 6, tying the game. And Luka Kanji would kick a field goal. Saskatchewan was up 10-7. The big story was Ryan Dinwiddie's first game this was Ryan Dinwiddie's first start as a member in the CFL. He joined the Blue Bombers, and unfortunately, when Kevin Glenn got hurt in the Eastern Final with a broken left arm, Dinwiddie was pressed into action and would have to go to the 2007 Grey Cup. Of course, Ryan Dinwiddie would do much better as a head coach, winning 2 Grey Cups in 2022 and the current Grey Cup in 2024. Much to my annoyance, of course. But nevertheless, Dinwiddie had to be pressed in for Kevin Glenn. Saskatchewan was only up 10-7, so no big deal. Dinwiddie could win as a player. There were a lot of musical acts and all that, but Bare Naked Ladies would be doing the national anthem, and Lenny Kravitz would be doing the halftime show. So, yeah, some great music. And then the second half started. On the third play of the second half, Dinwiddie would fumble. Saskatchewan capped the ball and kicked the field goal to make it 13-7. However, Dinwiddie threw a touchdown to Derek Armstrong to make it 14-13 Winnipeg. Unfortunately, Dinwiddie would throw another interception to James Johnson. Saskatchewan was in position. Saskatchewan actually was stopped on third down. Remember, in the NFL, the CFL, you get 3 downs instead of 4. So it looked like Winnipeg would get the ball back. However, Saskatchewan coach and former quarterback of the Rough Riders, Kent Austin, who also led Saskatchewan to one of the greatest Grey Cup wins of all time at the Grey Cup 1989 that Rogers Center hosted, challenged the placement of the ball, and it was good. They got the first down for Sasky, and Conchi kicked the field goal. And then on the first possession of the fourth quarter, Kerry Joseph threw to Andy Fantuz for a touchdown, giving Sasky a 9-point lead. Saskatchewan would have to concede another safety because of a punt, and the Bombers were down by 7. However, Winnipeg would only get a field goal to make it 23-19. The worst part was on the Bombers' final possession, Dinwiddie threw a pass intercepted by James Johnson, and James Johnson became the first player in history to intercept 3 passes in the Grey Cup game. Saskatchewan won the game 23-19, and poor Ryan Dinwiddie. Although, as I said, he was better as a head coach for the stuff. But James Johnson just basically was in Dinwiddie's head all day. But, of course, as I said, the main reason why I'm doing this is because of the fact that this was the last game / Grey Cup that CBC would ever host. TSN had the CFL rights starting in 2008, meaning no networks could broadcast any games, except in the States, when Versus and CBS Sports Network would do it. But anyway, CBC would show a game every Saturday as per usual. I remember that. CBC would host the Labor Day doubleheader between the Argos and Ticats, Battle of Ontario, and the Eskimo Stamps, the Battle of Alberta. They would also host Thanksgiving doubleheaders and had exclusive coverage of all playoff games and the Grey Cup from 91 to 2007. I say that because, I'm reading the stuff. And let's not forget that CTV actually did have CFL coverage for a long time and also shared the Grey Cup with CBC. There would be times that CBC would host. They decided in the 60s that CBC and CTV would split their TV people, meaning CTV crew would broadcast the first half and CBC would broadcast the second half, and vice versa. And of course, the game would be shown simultaneously on CBC and CTV. So yeah, this was huge and all that. In 2013, the CFL granted a no-bid extension to the TSN contract, which meant CBC would not try professional sports broadcasting of any kind. So basically, no Blue Jays on CBC, no Raptors on CBC. Well, NHL, obviously, you got to show because it's Canadian. Fuck. So, anyways, CBC had some great moments and all that. Of course, on their personalities was Steve Armitage, play-by-play, Don Chevrier, Chris Cuthbert, legend, Mark Lee, Bruce Rainey, and even the late great Don Whitman for play-by-play. Color commentary, Ernie Avagatis, Leo Cahill for many years, James Curry, Darren Flutie, Russ Jackson, Dan Kepley, Ron Lancaster was a color commentator for a while, Fred Rickney, Chris Walby, and all that. Yeah, of course, the CFL and CBC was just full of lots of stuff and all that. They were simulcast with CTV for the Grey Cup from 1962 to 1986. And then from 87 to 1990, the Canadian Football Network, a cable network that showed Canadian football, would have simultaneous coverage with them. And CBC would have the Canadian rights from 91 to 2007, except for the fact that, well, in the US, ESPN2 would broadcast it. Remember the 94 Grey Cup with a young Gus Johnson at play-by-play for ESPN2? Yeah, that was epic. So the fact of the matter is that it was the end of an era. CBC would broadcast no more CFL action, which sucks because, have TSN broadcast stuff during the week and then CBC just do a game on Saturday and a game on Sunday. That would be fun and all that. Because they didn't want to compete with the NFL. So yeah, it was the end of era for CBC, and I feel bad for them. I mean, they let Chris Cuthbert go, which was the stupidest thing you could ever imagine. TSN got him, and he was great, and now he's on Sportsnet. So suck it, CBC. Sorry, that's how I feel. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.